What's up guys, so you might have seen this picture circling around the internet. I first saw it 2 days ago, and when I did, I didn't even think much of it. I had no idea that this was going to blow up so much and spark so much debate and outrage online, even between people in the same circles. I made my own retweet about it, noting some of my worries with the future of Bethesda, something that I already touched on a bit on a separate video going over the changes in Oblivion and the reasons why I believe that those changes and additions were put there. I'll touch on it a bit again today later in the video, since I would bet that you guys haven't seen it yet and it is relevant to this topic. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read you what I tweeted about it, and then we're going to expand on it a bit, and then we'll go over things that have popped up in the meantime as the discourse surrounding this has taken off. I've been worried about the actual game since I saw the direction shift in Starfield, the loss of that organic adventure feeling, the loss of quality in the world design. The loss of Jeremy Soule as a composer has also worried me. I'm not trying to do a cute pun when I say that that guy's music is the soul of Elder Scrolls. It actually literally is. And the censorship and overt direction towards this weird genderless thing in Oblivion Remaster has made me even more worried that we'll be looking at a modern audience Elder Scrolls game completely detached from the heart and soul that made the previous games so damn good. Love it or hate it, and fair is fair, Skyrim deserves criticism for watering down the mechanical depth present in the past games, but regardless, each game, Skyrim included, was magic, a literal product of the past that I'm not sure modern Bethesda can recapture, just like modern Obsidian failed with Avowed. Not so much because of literal Karen-looking lead developers, some of which were already there during the making of those older and successful games, but more so because of the shift in direction and attitude, the change in vision and of who leads that vision. People may screech all they'd like, but they were already there in the original Oblivion. True, but something definitely has changed if back then the word female wasn't an offensive word that needed to be removed as it is today. Things change, people change, their appearance doesn't really matter. They could look like a generic white male, they could look like Randy Pitchford, for example. No one is immune to turning into or falling in line with the moronic bullshit that hinders creativity and escapism in these studios. So that's my general view of the situation. I'll expand a bit on it because ever since then discourse blew up, and I don't want to name any names, but there's people getting so outraged over others getting concerned about the Elder Scrolls 6 because of pattern recognition, and I really don't like that. Again, I want to emphasize that word, concerned. The majority of what I've seen online surrounding this has been concern, not outright checking the game off already or making a claim of what it's going to be like. I don't believe the Elder Scrolls 6 is cooked automatically because there's 3 women working on it. This doesn't really nudge me one way or another. In fact, these screenshots of these developers come from the Oblivion Remaster's announcement video, which I watched as soon as it dropped, and I saw them and I didn't care at all. Obviously their appearances sparked a bit of a oh boy reaction, because it just is what it is. It's impossible not to look at this and think of all the crazy people out there who have co-opted this look. You know what I mean. But that's about it. It's just a small reaction. It's like if I go to a bank and I see a guy with a mask standing in line, I'm going to think twice. I think I'm just going to leave and come back later. It could even be Joey Salads doing a YouTube prank, but I don't care. I'm not gonna take that chance, you know what I mean? In that video you can actually see some of them from the past working on the original Oblivion. So when I saw this, I immediately knew that, for example, there was a degree of disingenuousness from some people posting this without that context. It's as if they were implying that these women are new hires and the studio is cooked because, they just kind of hired these random women out of nowhere, put them in lead positions, and they're women and they're woke, and that's it. And on that note, I do agree that we should call that kind of thing out, because the truth of a matter is what is most important. And the truth is that they were already working there originally. They're not new hires, they started from the bottom and they moved up, and they contributed to many games that we hold dear, and based off of their appearances alone, it's unfair to make assumptions. However, with that said, some people are also just going in way too hard on this matter and are throwing away proven things like pattern recognition and making arguments that don't hold up at all with the reality that we're living in the industry today, with some of the recent stuff that we have seen, such as old school developers who have lost their minds. While it is true that these ladies have been at the company for over 20 years and we don't know anything about them, it is also true that we don't know anything about them. Do you see what I mean? If it comes down to being on the same ground level, neutral ground, we don't know anything about anything. All that we know is that Bethesda just released a 20-year-old remaster and they just couldn't resist but change a few things. Now, if I'm supposed to make a bet on whether or not the next installment of a game from this studio is going to be concerning or not, I'm going to bet on yes it is. Because if they couldn't leave alone a 20-year-old remaster, why would they leave alone a brand new game? And that's not to mention all the other issues going on within the Xbox Game Studios, which we'll get to in a second. But anyway, that doesn't matter, forget I just said this, it's just some anecdotal, unscripted nonsense. Let's just get back to the main topic. Being employed at these studios for a very long time doesn't mean that you haven't changed and gone down a certain kind of road that so many others have because of the environments in these studios. Remember, Bethesda now belongs to Xbox Game Studios. They have certain rules that they have to follow. This is high-level AAA, and we've seen the kinds of ridiculous environments being fostered in some of them. The pendulum rocked towards the left so incredibly hard during the past few years, and we've seen examples of once normal developers now standing up for unhinged shit or doing terrible work because they have become unable to separate their politics from their work. Developers such as Matt Hansen, Patrick Weeks, David Jaffe, and David Gator. And that's just some examples of older ones with seniority as a direct example against the argument that basically states that just because you've been around for a long time in the industry and you have seniority, then you're supposed to be all good. Because there's obviously a lot more examples of other developers who are younger and engaging in this kind of stupid behavior. But anyway, yeah, sorry, but we've gotten too many examples of these environments and corporate policies seeping into the culture of the studios and the very people who work in them, and then delivering games that are tainted by them in some way or another.
So, I'm non-binary.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you something.
We don't care.
Jerry.
We just don't have any evidence in either direction that states that these women are a certain way or another, and that's as far as my defense of them goes. I don't know them, they clearly have legitimate resumes, they clearly have done good work in the past, just like other developers like Patrick Weeks had done before Veilguard came out and exposed how off he went. In fact, in his case and in the case of Matt Hansen, things get even crazier as they have gone full ideological warrior. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to give examples in just a little bit, just bear with me here because first I have to get something off my chest. I'm not going to be directly sharing anyone's particular takes in this video because online things are already way too heated up enough as it is, and I don't want to throw more wood into the fire. I think it's ridiculous that some people just cannot have a disagreement and talk about this stuff, hold each other accountable if need be, without being hostile and targeting each other's character. I'm not talking about ridiculous examples either, like this isn't directed at people when they take a shit on John De La Rose or George Storch and their retarded posts that are often malicious in nature. I'm talking about people simply memeing on this photo and saying that Elder Scrolls 6 bros should be worried or that Elder Scrolls 6 is cooked, such as the post from Cabrutus. Endymion was also added like this, and I went looking for what he had said because I was curious to see how badly he had screwed up, and this is what I found. Oh boy, here we go again, followed by, I see people saying I'm making fun of women. No, I'm just saying here we go again, as in here we go with the usual discourse. I know they've been there for years. I hope TES 6 is amazing. Hopefully Bethesda makes it great. Let's give Bethesda a chance. If they fuck it up, we can talk about it. What is so bad about this? I don't agree with everything that Endymion says, and I know that he's had blunders in the past where he got shit wrong and then reports on it right away, but I don't get the derangement. Like, I see this post and I don't see the issue. He's not attacking them, he's not condemning the game. Grums, on the other hand, posted this picture, and I do see a bigger issue with his post where he leaves the context out. Grums and Cabrutus's posts have the issue where they could elaborate. If they wanted to, they could inform people and be more measured about this stuff. Inform people that these women have been in the company for 20 years and more, and that the image's premise based on appearances alone is unfair, however that there is validity in this reason or that reason, like for example talking about the Oblivion Changes. Like, that's what I did with my post. I explained the things that have me concerned with the Elder Scrolls 6, and the appearance of these women are not one of them. However, I do understand the "oh boy" kind of reaction. Grums makes a good point that this is sadly the way that the climate in the games industry is now, where people are always on the back foot, always worried about what is the next thing that's going to be screwed with by activists, and rightfully so, to be fair. Like, just using Bethesda as an example, again, we just had Oblivion's remaster getting censored. We'll get to this in a bit. This is a fine thing to acknowledge because that's just reality. This is how people feel. But what Grums should have followed that with is by appealing to people to chill the fuck out. Tell them that these women have been at the studio for decades and to not get baited into stuff like this. Instead, raising concerns about the remaster, for example, or this list of creative restrictions that Xbox Game Studios employs in their games and that coincide with the censorship applied to Oblivion's remaster, etc. Basically, valid things. I'm all for calling this kind of thing out and holding people accountable for this, especially people with big followings who have at least a certain degree of responsibility to tell the truth. But I don't see the reason for the exaggeration, or starting to come up with copium arguments that dismiss the value of pattern recognition, dismiss the fact that Xbox Game Studios have been a concentration of woked-out activist developers, several of which have been already crashing out in public. Matt Hansen went full Super Saiyan, showing his actual vivid hatred for just about over half of the goddamn country that he lives in. If you're an audio listener, check the screen right now to see the tweet. Then over here he's just going off on another random person for just wanting to play a video game, and who could forget his weird cringy ass comments about there being way too many crusty white dudes in the industry, so if you're a black artist, contact him and he'll get you in the games industry. When he got called out that this was discrimination based hiring and illegal, he just laughed manically and felt more invigorated by it. Like, this is a grown-ass man crashing out, and he had no accountability for it whatsoever. In fact, the studio backed him up, banned people asking for accountability and asking questions. In fact, if you check the Slack messages that were leaked, you will also see people in the studio supporting his behavior. There was also an Obsidian insider leaking information out to tell people how much worse it actually was and how much figurative power someone like Matt Hansen holds inside the studio. Similarly, this isn't about Xbox right now, but the same shit happened with Ubisoft, with developers leaking information out to tell others just how unhinged things are inside. But going back to Xbox Game Studios, we also have this guy from The Perfect Dark Game openly showing hatred for the very people he makes games for, justifying it that nope, this isn't for everyone, it's just for bigots. But then when you look deeper, what do you find? Well, you find that what he means by bigots is, again, over half of the country that he lives in, aka people who voted for or associate with people who voted right. Let's do one more. Compulsion Games, developers of the recent South of Midnight, and their community manager who does the same thing as the previous guy while also being fucking racist against white and Asian people. Have any of these people gotten fired, or has there been anything at all about this addressed in public? Of course not. Again, the environment in many of these studios is cooked, fellas. They are working in environments that actually makes them think that it's okay to write shit like this in public. If they do this in public, I can only imagine how they are behind closed doors. And expecting people to just forget that this is happening in the industry right now is ridiculous, and it's just not going to happen. We can totally draw lines here and tell the truth, say that these women have been working there for ages, say that we don't know anything about it, but making arguments in defense of the Elder Scrolls 6 while invalidating all of these facts contributing to why some people are concerned is really not a good idea to go about it. And obviously neither is relying on seniority, because some of the developers we just mentioned had seniority. Another example is David Jaffe and David Gator. These guys are industry veterans, and now they're just known for being retirees who take time out of their day to attack fan bases online for basic common sense takes such as, this character looks ugly. Just is what it is, fellas. Some people change, some people fall off, and it's not unfair to think so, especially when we look at these individual elements that kind of paint a bad picture. Now let's get to the biggest issue of all, in my book at least, the Oblivion Changes. I already covered this topic extensively, including a video urging people to chill out, which I will reiterate here before someone takes me out of context. The Oblivion remaster is something that people are rightfully excited to be playing, and I was urging people to chill out on some of the rhetoric online, because when the body type stuff came out, some people started doing what they usually do, which is to want to cancel the entire game, deem the entire thing a woke disaster, you know, just like John De La Rose, start spouting off that anyone who plays it is a woke loser or supports censorship, etc. This to me is very, very familiar with what we hear from the other side whenever they don't want us to play something. It's the exact same tactics that they use when they call us ists or phobes or bigots or whatever because of wanting to play a game like Stellar Blade or Black Myth Wukong, or wanting to install mods like the one that removes the body type stuff from games like Oblivion, or supporting developers like Thomas Mahler, Marek Tymiński, etc. The same way that these annoying people got us to turn against them, got many of us to even feel radicalized in a way against this stuff because of their strict, ridiculous and authoritative tactics, can happen to us if we do the same. If we just look at a game whose experience is overwhelmingly intact and plays just as the original did, and we try to forbid people from playing that, they're not going to like it. And it also puts way too much relevance on the elements that are screwing the game up that sometimes aren't even that relevant. Sometimes we hyperfixate on these things and we're like, no, this game must die because it has the body type thing on it. And then by doing that, what you are creating is an avenue for people to say that if the game succeeds, it succeeded because of the body type. And that's not at all the case. Take a look at Elden Ring, for example. Did that game succeed because of the body type bullshit in the menu? Of course not. Succeeded because it was a fantastic game. But if we double down, if we went so hard on it because of that thing, then they could use it against us. They could say, the market has decided, and body type stuff is something that gamers don't care about, or is something that gamers like, when we know that it is not. Ultimately, a game sells because it's either good or not. With Oblivion, when people are excited to jump in and relive the experience or try it for the first time, and then we just come in and we go nuts, insult them or demean them in some way or another, just because they want to play it, and just because they're not as hardline as some of us may be, fully boycotting the game, we are basically doing the same shit. It just annoys them and turns them against us because reason is not entirely on our side. It comes across as extremism, which it is. Understand that I'm not saying that boycotting the game is extremism. If you do, that's fine. What I'm saying is that enforcing it on others is the extremism. So I try to push people towards chilling out and separating things, articulating their criticism towards these elements of the game, because it is just what it is. Sometimes there's going to be great games, like Elden Ring again, that have this one or two elements that don't affect the entire experience, but that are there and are annoying and are a sign of this ideology, like the body type A and B setting, but like, you would never be able to cancel a game like Elden Ring anyway, so why try to make yourself look like a clown? In situations like these, we have to know how to separate things and approach them differently. We have to be smarter, we have to drop the emotional overreactions and criticize the element. Make these companies aware that you're done with this shit, that you've got the activist fatigue, and you're not going to be supporting their games if they keep dialing it up. That is still my stance to this day. However, after playing more of Oblivion, I made this video going through several examples of more stuff that got censored or changed in some way or another, and it's very obvious why it happened. They all fell within the pattern of this stuff right here, from that list that I showed just a bit ago, specifically the stuff on this corner right here, putting women and femininity down, to deem it as problematic, offensive, harmful, so on and so forth. This is an active example that things at Bethesda are not normal, that things have changed over there, and this is evidence of that. I accept that we don't know how bad it is because we're basically in between games as they take forever on Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5, but Oblivion Remaster was a successful launch because it was Oblivion, a game from nearly 20 years ago. That was a banger. That 2006 part is the part that sold, not the modern garbage that they added in afterwards, not this body type nonsense, or these censored statues hiding the female form, or these armors doing the same thing, or this degenderization of the stats and the language. Like, all this stuff is just garbage. It's nobody wants this. You have to understand that the original part of Oblivion is what got people hyped and happy. While these changes were a fucking dud that nobody wanted, they still forced those in there regardless. This was the product of modern Bethesda on this game. You could argue that it doesn't matter, that we can't directly link it to these 3 developers, etc., and you're right. For all we know, these developers are based as fuck and this is just their look because it's just their style. That is perfectly plausible. I'm not going to argue against it. Again, as I said in my own post, I don't care about this stuff. I don't know these ladies, I'm not going to attack them. I'm not judging them based solely on their appearance. But what this company did to Oblivion was dirty. They just couldn't leave a goddamn 20-year-old game alone. They had to go and inject whatever garbage they could without overextending themselves too much, without wasting too much development resources, too much money, too much time, etc. And with that, I can't imagine how much worse it could have been if it was an actual full remake or a brand new game. How many more things they would have changed or added in accordance to that same pattern of behavior and in accordance to that same list of delusional creator restrictions. I'm still very much concerned for Elder Scrolls 6. Being concerned is pretty much the default status of Bethesda fans since the release of Fallout 76. Some have been concerned since the release of Fallout 4 actually, a concern that grew even more when Starfield turned out to be so disappointing, lacking those core values that had us falling in love with games like Oblivion, Skyrim and Fallout to begin with. That organic feeling of adventure, of wandering around and getting into trouble, going into caves or ruins or whatever and like finding stories inside of them, going around and stumbling into a new quest without any map markers, without anything, just running around, finding something, getting into a new adventure, and then that adventure sometimes even leads to another adventure, so on and so forth. These were the strengths of these games, and they were not present in Starfield. So honestly, even without these screenshots of these ladies, a lot of people are already on the back foot with Bethesda. The censorship in Oblivion is just yet another thing to add to the list of concerns that people feel for Elder Scrolls 6. As I said in my post, they could have shown a picture of a white male like Randy Pitchford. I would still be concerned because I'm seeing this shit be put into my favorite goddamn series and nobody in these studios is fighting against it. Some of them because they full on agree with it from being surrounded by this kind of ideology for years in work environments that foster it, and others because they're rightfully afraid of losing their jobs if they speak out, since you can bet that Microsoft wouldn't like resistance against their little regime. Again, take a step back and actually look at the crazy shit that's been coming out of Xbox Game Studios. Like, I'm sorry, but this is the congregation of studios that Bethesda belongs to now. So again, and in conclusion, by all means, call out wrong information, hold the creators accountable for possibly misrepresenting this situation by implying that these are new hires that came out of nowhere, show these ladies' resumes, defend that aspect of it. They truly don't deserve to be misrepresented if that's the case. But don't get mad at people for being concerned regardless and making perfectly valid arguments of the fact that we don't know if these developers, even with seniority, are the same as they've always been. We just don't know that. This is being presented as a fact, like, oh, they've always been there, therefore everything is fine. We just don't know that. Especially in a company like Bethesda that has definitely changed while under this new management. Like, what are some of you doing getting mad at people over this? For thinking or showing concern for something that does follow a certain pattern. We just don't know, and not knowing goes both ways. And you know what else? You know what's actually even worse? It's that Elder Scrolls 6 might actually really suck when it comes out and be caked with this shit that they put into the remaster but multiplied by 1,000 since it's now being built up from the ground. And people will remember this picture and they'll be like, see, I was right, while still being wrong, because in reality these developers could indeed be based. And it's actually the fault of some other asshole, maybe even a new appointed by Xbox's woke ass inside team who made that ridiculous list to begin with.
Fuck Microsoft! Okay. Fuck!
This could very well happen because, again, developers don't speak out, they only do so by leaking information out, sadly. The environments that have been fostered in these studios are ones where you either fall in line with the craziness or you get the fuck out, which of course is sad and unfair to those who never wanted anything to do with it in the first place. But anyway, that's about it from me on the topic. I just wanted to quickly talk about it loosely. Again, this isn't an essay video or anything, this isn't a call out, it's just a conversation. And I know some of you might like me listening to this and you might think, well, Des, why don't you call out the other side more often then? Honestly, it's because the other side has dogshit arguments like this. This guy wants women removed from gaming development, like entirely. Like, there isn't even any substance for me to be counter-arguing this. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's also a lot of people on the way lefty side who are crazy and who make totally unhinged arguments that I don't bring up either. It's because I'm not going to be making videos counter-arguing against utter delusional dog shit. Although maybe I could do it if I could like get a lot of them together and I would make like a compilation of them and I'll just treat it more as a joke video. But yeah, in general guys, it's because stuff like this can't even be entertained or taken seriously. There's still way too many reasons for people to be perfectly validated in their concerns for the Elder Scrolls 6. And while it is unfair to judge these three ladies based off of their appearances, I think the arguments that are being made in their defense are just a generalization from the other side that is easily disproven by pointing to those aforementioned developers in this video. A better way to defend them and their work is by actually talking about their contributions, going over their resumes and showing people that they've actually been around for decades, climbing up the game developer ladder little by little with each new release. But that's not gonna take away from the concerns that people have with the Elder Scrolls 6 and everything else surrounding the situation, everything else surrounding the studio, everything else surrounding the Xbox Game Studios division, and the kind of people that have been found inside. People aren't crazy for being concerned about this game. But anyway, thanks for watching, fellas. Do let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you on the next one, probably in June. Take care.